Hello and welcome to Red Read. Today I want to talk about Snow White by Donald Barthelme. So I've read a couple of Donald Barthelme books so far. The big one, or the first thing that I read was 60 Stories, and I did make a video of that. And I really loved it, by the way, and I'll get back to that. But next I read The Dead Father, which I read and thought, okay, I kind of love this because I kind of just love everything Donald Barthelme does. It seemed clear to me that Barthelme is a better short story writer than he is a novelist. And from what I'd heard is that Snow White was, even though still it stands that Barthelme is a short story writer, as per his genius, Snow White is sort of the best novel that he wrote. And yeah, I was really looking forward to it because it's basically Barthelme's raunchy postmodern take on the myth of Snow White, where instead of just kind of living in a house and being in this weirdly platonic relationship with these dwarves, she's actually sleeping with all of the dwarves, and but then she kind of becomes not interested in them, and the dwarves, who all have really normal names. Let me get it up actually because it's quite a hoot. So the dwarves' names are actually Kevin, Edward, Hubert, Henry, Clem, Dan, and Bill. And so then we go through and we have these kind of weird plots. There is a character who is acting as a pseudo wicked stepmother, and then we also have a pseudo Prince Charming as well, which just in case you weren't kind of clued into it, Barthelme very conveniently includes a questionnaire at the end of the first part of the book, asking readers if we like the story so far. Does Snow White resemble the Snow White you remember? Have you understood in reading to this point that Paul is the prince figure? Yes, no. That Jane is the wicked stepmother figure? Yes, no. Just classic. I cannot read Barthelme without just having the biggest, dumbest grin on my face the whole time. And, from reading his short stories, what I love so much about him is that he writes stories like how I dream, which is general, and I guess how a lot of people dream, which is not long dreams, but just fragments and generally second acts. So there was a setup, and I kind of leave or wake up before any action really ever happens. I'm just kind of, promenading through this world when I have, on the rare occasions that I remember my dreams, and so I just have such an affinity for Barthelme, and I wanted to just talk about Snow White because it's it does what it says on the paper. It's a postmodern retelling of the Snow White myth, and we start by, instead of so Barthelme just in the first sentence says, okay, what I'm going to do is just talk about how beautiful she is, and then kind of break or make that imperfect. So the first line is, she is a tall, dark beauty containing a great many beauty spots. And then he lists where they are, and then all of them go down sort of in a row like this. And so right off the bat, we're getting... I kind of wonder why there's 6 and not 7, or maybe it was intentional that there wasn't as many beauty spots as dwarves. I don't know why. And then he says, the hair is black as ebony, the skin white as snow. And then we just get started. We go in, and the first thing we get introduced with one of the dwarves is that Bill is tired of Snow White now. And we get this sort of there's these interpersonal relationships between the dwarves, and they're trying to kind of figure out how to live in this house with all 7 of them and Snow White, and then they learn about the figure of Paul, and they're trying to sort of stop the Prince Charming from coming. And then because Snow White is, she studies a great deal of things, and there's a list, I hope I can find it, there's a list of all of the subjects that Snow White has studied in school, and so she's got these kind of very forward thinking and very post-suffrage perspectives on like womanhood and female autonomy. And so just some ideas. I actually found the list of of where she got her education, which was at Beaver College, of course. She studied Modern Woman, Her Privileges and Responsibilities, Classical Guitar 1, English Romantic Poets 2, Theoretical Foundations of Psychology, Oil Painting 1, Personal Resources 1 and 2, Realism and Idealism in the Contemporary Italian Novel. And I just love it. I can't get over how much fun this book is, and it like works in a lot of the similar kind of verbosity, but also great sense of humor and really clever, unique ways of writing and constructing sentences that you see in Barthelme's short stories. And I wouldn't say that the book is too long, because there were some times in The Dead Father where maybe it felt like it was almost just leading up to the very end, the A Manual for Sons, which ended up is actually a reworking, or it got reworked and became a short story of its own. With The Dead Father, I kind of felt like, even despite how short the book was, it was kind of too long, and it, pardon the pun, it dragged on. But Snow White didn't feel like that, and the way that we do it is we're just kind of constantly jumping between Snow White and her kind of perspectives on just her situation. We've got the dwarves, we've got Paul, we've got Jane, and then it leads into a really kind of hilarious ending, which I won't spoil, but just a very classic postmodern take of some of these kind of trite Disney myths that of course Barthelme is just sort of like mocking. And what I think I'll do is I'm just going to read a couple of sections. The cool thing is that the chapters of the book are generally no more than 3 pages long, and so let me just jump in and read some fun extracts. What is Snow White thinking? No one knows. Today she came into the kitchen and asked for a glass of water. Henry gave her a glass of water. Aren't you going to ask me what I want this glass of water for? She asked. I assumed you wanted to drink it, Henry said. No, Henry, Snow White said. Thirsty I am not. You are not paying attention, Henry. Your eye is not on the ball. What do you want the glass of water for, Snow White? Let 100 flowers bloom, Snow White said. Then she left the room carrying a glass of water. Kevin came in. Snow White smiled at me in the hall, Kevin said. Shut up, Kevin. Shut up and tell me what this means. Let 100 flowers bloom. I don't know what it means, Henry, Kevin said. It's Chinese, I know that. What is Snow White thinking? No one knows. Now she has taken to wearing heavy blue, bulky, shapeless quilted People's Volunteers trousers, rather than the tight, tremendous How the West Was Won trousers she formerly wore, which we admired immoderately. An unmistakable affront, I would say. We were getting pretty damn sick of the whole thing, of her air of being just about to do something, and of the dozen odd red flags and bugles she has nailed to the dining room table. We are getting pretty damn sick of the whole thing, and our equanimity is leaking away, and finding those tiny Chairman Mao poems in the baby food isn't helping one bit, I can tell you that. I was fair once, Jane said. I was the fairest of them all. Men came from miles around simply to be in my power, but those days are gone, those better days. Now I cultivate my malice. It is a cultivated malice, not the pure natural malice we knew when the world was young. I grow more witch-like as the hazy days imperceptibly meld into one another, and the musky months sink into memory as into a slough, sump, or slime. But I have my malice. I have that. I have even invented new varieties of malice that men have not seen before. Were it not for the fact that I am the sleepy of Hugo de Bergerac, I would be total malice. But I am redeemed by this hopeless love, which places me along the human continuum still. Even Hugo is, I think, chiefly enamoured of my malice, that artful, richly formed, and softly poisonous network of growths. He luxuriates in the pain potential I am surrounded by. I think I will just sit here on this porch swing now, swinging gently in the moist morning, and remember better days. Then a cup of Chinese restaurant tea at 10 a.m. Then back into the swing for more better days. Yes, that would be a pleasant way to spend the forenoon. I don't know why it is just ridiculously funny that Snow White is not called a housewife, she's called a horsewife. And so this whole chapter is Miseries and Complaints of Snow White. I am tired of being just a housewife. Another fun mini essay. The Psychology of Snow White. What does she hope for? Someday my prince will come. By this, Snow White means she lives her own being as incomplete, pending the arrival of one who will complete her. That is, she lives her own being as not with, even though she is in some sense with the 7 men, Bill, Kevin, Clem, Hubert, Henry, Edward, and Dan. But the not with is experienced as stronger, more real at this particular instant in time than the being with. The incompleteness is an ache capable of subduing all other data presented by consciousness. I don't go along with those theories of historical necessity, which suggests that her actions are dictated by forces outside of the individual. That doesn't seem reasonable in this case. And gosh, I know that this is just me, again, gushing like a buffoon at how much I love Barthelme, but if there was anyone that if I could turn back time, be born in a different place and time, and happen to be enrolled in the same university and go and study, like just choosing any person to study with, like there are writers that I maybe love and admire their work and think are more kind of technically brilliant, maybe, of course we've got the classics like Joyce and Gaddis and Borges, but if I could think of someone who I think would just be like really the perfect teacher, somebody that just a mind that I would love to be around and be under, would be Donald Barthelme, because yeah, he does that Gertrude Stein thing of just making words do what they ought to do, or however you want to interpret that. I know that I'm a sucker. I'm a hardcore simp when it comes to like postmodern things, but I hope that even if postmodernism isn't your particular vibe, I think that this is a perfect starting book to get into it. So I'm going to really recommend Snow White by Donald Barthelme if you haven't read any of his short stories. If you are more of a novel sort of gal, then I recommend jumping into this one. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.